Would you like to meet the Baron of Bicycles, the Wizard of Waterways, and the Prince of Paths? I've got him, and he is as interesting as his titles. Stay with us. Running a business requires smart decisions every day. Make a good decision for your company today and reach other businesses by sponsoring Lakeshore Focus. People who watch our show are an active part of the community. They care about their neighborhoods, schools, and their homes. Are these viewers your customers? Well, they should be. To learn about all the benefits of sponsoring Lakeshore Focus, give us a call at 219-756-5656. And instead of seeing my face, you can see your business. Welcome again to Lakeshore Focus, a weekly show highlighting the key issues, important events, and interesting people in our region. I'm Keith Kirkpatrick. When the winter retreats and the nice weather returns, it's time to find your walking shoes, dust off the bike, and uncover the boat. Northwest Indiana is a treasure trove of green and blue trails, paths, and byways for the pedal, and paddle people. There is no one better to talk about this subject than my guest today. I have already bestowed upon him the titles Baron of Bicycles, Wizard of Waterways, and Prince of Paths. Most of us just know him as Mitch Barloga, who also is the Active Transportation Manager with the Northwestern Indiana Regional Planning Commission. I always get that thrown off by that Northwestern. You guys are the only group that calls yourself Northwestern.
Throws me off too. But thanks, Keith.
The rest of us just Northwest Indiana, right?
Exactly.
So I was we were talking a little bit before about how long it's been. I think it's been about 4 years since I had you on the show.
Yep.
I don't remember your beard being that gray. Mine probably wasn't either.
That's what life will do to you.
Well, I'm glad to have you on the show.
Thanks.
And with the nicer weather coming, and it's time for people to start, I guess, biking. And you're kind of you have another title. What is that title?
What, Trails Are?
The Trails Are. That's right.
The unofficial one, right?
That didn't have the same alliteration as the other ones that I came up with.
Those were wonderful. Thank you.
Like those?
Yeah, I need more for my LinkedIn page. That's great. Just keeps adding to the titles.
There we go. So you're in charge of really trying to deal with all the pedestrian, bicycle, and water kind of transportation. That's what they call it. What is it? Active what?
Active transportation.
So how do you define that?
Active transportation is simply those modes of transportation that you yourself power, okay? Basically people power. So you're active and involved in the transportation of yourself no matter what that might be. So basically non-motorized.
This probably doesn't count when your car doesn't work and you're having to push it though, right?
It counts. That's interesting. I'd have to go back to the books on that.
So you've been responsible for this for how many years?
I've worked at NERPC regarding this matter for the last 14 years. And before that, I was working with the city of Crown Point on the same issue, and then in the south suburbs of Chicago for a couple of years. So nearly 20 years.
So 14 years ago, what did we have in terms of paths and bicycles and waterways for Northwest Indiana?
What we had was a very disjointed network of systems. I can't remember the actual number exactly, but it's probably about 40 to 50 miles of trail, but they weren't connected. I mean, you couldn't get from A to B very well. You'd have to have a segment here, a segment there, maybe a few miles here, a few miles there. Waterways, those weren't developed at all. People knew where to paddle, but they didn't have signage, there wasn't any maps and what have you, and now we have been able to take that on quite well over the last decade or so. 14
years ago, I think if you would have asked the average person if we have bike trails and waterways in Northwest Indiana, the vast majority would have probably said, no, we don't have anything like that here. Wouldn't you think?
It depends on where you lived. I mean, Hammond had some, obviously, the Erie-Lackawanna, which is now a complete 17-mile system. It was sporadic, and the Prairie Duneland was sporadic in Portage, and Oak Savannah, and on and on. So it depends on where you lived, but I think the balance of the people maybe knew we had them, but they didn't know where to get on them.
Have you figured this out? If you get on one of the bike paths and you just rode continuously, try to not get off a path. How many miles could you go on that? Do you know?
The longest contiguous path you can ride at this time is if you start in downtown Hammond. Actually, it's kind of a cross. You can start in downtown Hammond, or you can actually start just north of River Oaks. And both of those trails, Pensy and the Erie-Lackawanna, will continue you through to the Oak-Savannah Trail. That'll take you to Hobart. And then eventually you'll get to Portage on the Prairie Duneland to Chesterton. You can take that through Porter and then end up on the Calumet Trail. You could be there at the entrance of the state park of the Indiana Dunes National Lakeshore, and that's probably a 40 to 50 mile contiguous path.
Wow.
Yeah.
Have you ever done that?
Once, yes.
What's your favorite place to bicycle?
In this region, I would have to say it's the Oak-Savannah Trail, from Griffith to Hobart. It's a 9 to 10 mile system, but it's all canopied. It's all in shade. And the way the railroads worked in the day when they installed these corridors, they didn't care about environmental laws. They didn't have any environmental laws. So you had a wetland, you just built on it. And you know about train technology, you can't be sloped too much with a train. You have to stay within 1% to 2%. So the grade goes well above these wetlands, right through the Hobart Marsh area. I mean, environmentalists today would be appalled by it, but back then it's what you did. And now you have this fascinating trail network where you go through the treetops in many of the cases because you're so elevated. And then you get into Lake George and you have a vista. You can look over the entire Lake George area from the trail. And there is nature abundant, and again, trees abundant, and just a lot of fascinating stops along the way with that entire system.
So for people who are a little concerned about riding and thinking they imagine pedaling hard uphill or downhill, most of these paths are fairly flat because they're where the old railroads
There are the
used
old
to be.
railroads, and of course, the way the geology works out with the glacial wash, we're a very flat region.
So you can pretty much get around without killing yourself pedaling, right?
A lot of people like hills, by the way. That helps them train, but for the casual rider and the family riders, this is perfect.
Who came up with this pedal and paddle?
I guess that's my deal. There was an organization in Chicago called CATS, a Chicago Area Transportation Study, and they merged into a larger organization. They put out a plan called Souls and Spokes. I thought that's cute. Let's think of something for our end, and Ped and Pedal came up. And then when Dan Plath kind of exploded with his work in Northwest Indiana, the Paddling Association, Paddle came into the view, and that just all meshed together with Ped, Pedal, and Paddle. So that's where we're at.
The logo's cool too because it just kind of shows the bike and the whole thing. So it's kind of a.
Well, that's John Smith. That's our creative artist in house. So all kudos to him.
It's neat. So what did bring about all this with the waterways becoming part of the mix?
Yeah, back in 2007, we were putting together this unique planning effort called Greenways and Blueways. It was an effort to...
Which is another clever thing.
Thank you.
Did you come up with all these?
I think somebody else may have come up with Greenways and Blueways.
Okay.
It could have been a collaborative effort. I won't take all the credit there. But it was an idea of bringing together all of the conservation planning that we had worked on at NERPC for many years, coalescing it, as well as water trail, planning. We had never done that before. We had never identified all the potential water trails in this region. We have a region that is somewhat wet, okay? It floods a lot. There's a lot of corridors, ditches, rivers, lakes, call them what you will. And people have been paddling them for a long time, but we wanted to make sure people understood, okay, where were the put-ins and the takeouts? And the best thing about water trails, Keith, as you would imagine, it's all there. You just have to get to it. Okay?
Why do they call them water trails?
Well, people have referred to that for a while. You canoe, you kayak, and you float down them like you ride on a trail. So it just kind of made sense. It's a water trail like a land trail is.
I will often tell people when you are flying back in from the east or almost any place and you're taking that approach into Chicago, you kind of have this corridor over Northwest Indiana.
Yes.
And if you're on a sunny day, if you got the window seat and you look down, it's remarkable how much water there is down here.
Yes.
With all the wetlands and the streams, and I don't think we see that.
No. We don't.
Because they're really hidden.
They're, as they say, they're incised. They're deeply incised, below the grade. And so you have to, and that's the problem with getting down to these streams, is that you have to have the right ramp and the approach down to the waterways. So obviously they have to be somewhat safe and in some cases even accessible for the disabled to get to those waterways. And then of course you have to have enough of those launches where people can put in one area, take out in another area so they're not stuck. And that takes a bit of planning. And of course, in between it all, you have log jams and you have other types of obstructions, and all of that goes into the planning.
I guess you never think about that, because once you're on a bicycle, you're just kind of riding along, and if you have to stop someplace, you can literally chain it to a tree or something. But with a boat, I mean, you got something bigger.
Right.
You probably have a trailer or a bigger vehicle to carry it, and now
Yes.
you got to try to get it down the bank into water. It is a lot more complicated.
It's complicated, and it can be quite the effort if you don't have the right ramp.
So huge improvements have been made in that access piece. Is that what's
Yes.
really made the improvement?
We've had a lot of great improvements. Again, I mentioned Dan Plath with the Paddling Association. It's a phenomenal group of people. They're very active. There's a lot of stewardship going on there. Thanks to their work, we have a national water trail along Lake Michigan as well as the Kankakee River. Those are national designations. And they have just recently worked with the National Lakeshore in cleaning up the east branch of the Little Calumet River from the Portage area pretty much all the way to Chesterton. It's several miles. It's been cleaned out. It is a wonderful ride. It is one of the more natural areas too in this region, and that's a problem. We have all these ditches, and they're great for water flow, but they're not much for paddling. You just kind of fly on through there. The ones that meander, those are attractive, but they're problems. Those are the ones that you have your log jams because of all the meandering and the oxbowing from the lakes and what have you. And so they were able to get down there to the Little Cal. They were able to work with the National Lakeshore, and there was permits galore, as you would imagine, to make this work. But over the last couple of years, they have been able to clean it out, and now we have a functional waterway on that segment of the Little Cal.
Again, a different problem when a tree falls on a bike path. You just got to cut a section of it out.
Or you lift your bike up, yeah, right.
Or just go over it. But if it's in the water,
Yeah.
you got to get it up the bank, and it's usually probably multiple pieces, and then everything starts sticking to it. And
I'll relay a real quick story, but we tried to paddle Deep River when we first did this plan back in 07 and 06. And it was, I put in with the study buddy that I was working with, Durs Anderson from the Open Lands group, and we started paddling. We thought we could do maybe 4 miles. And we didn't go more than 2 miles. It took us 6 hours to go 2 miles. We had to take that canoe out about 40 times. And we had another 40 near misses as well. Spiders this big looking at you going, what are you doing here? I mean, but the problem with that was every time we took the boat out, there was high banks. It was very difficult to get the canoe above there. Stinging nettle, just for one thing. I'm a grown man. And this was 10 years ago, and I was practically crying in a field of stinging nettle in the middle of this, wondering when this is going to end. I mean, I guess it was my coming of age moment. But
well, you're right, because once you're into it, it's not like, well, we'll just turn around and go back.
yeah,
because
you're just going to go back to all those log jams,
Yeah,
right? I got to keep going.
to the same thing. So were you saying that to the spiders, what are you doing here, or were they saying that to you?
They had that look in their eye.
Yeah, they probably just thought you were just a big lunch, perhaps,
They were probably communicating with their friends.
As you were talking about the waterways, it's just, we have these flood problems here.
Mm-hmm.
What happens when it floods? Do they tell people you can't go into the rivers and areas during the flood period?
Yeah, people that are savvy with canoeing and do this often understand about flow, and there are a lot of river watches and river warnings. You get that on your phone. You see a flood warning, and it's pretty much telling you stay away from these. You don't want to paddle them. You're going to be taken down the stream at a high velocity. You might even crash into a bridge. You just don't want to do it. So I think there's a lot of common sense involved with that. The other end of the spectrum.
You can't also tell where the water is any.
Well, that too.
It's kind of like snow in the winter, right? And you can't see where the fire hydrants are.
You can't, and you can't even tell where to put the canoe in. You don't know where the ramps are. Everything's been flooded over. But the real problem is, conversely, when there's not enough water. And we have to work with making sure that people understand that some of our waterways are seasonal. And, come the fall, when things start drying up and, before the snow really hits, we lose some waterways, and we have to keep people educated on that regard.
So how about the walking piece of this? Because it seems like communities throughout our entire region have been putting in more sidewalks and curbing and just walking paths, trying to make more places for people to walk.
Right.
What kind of progress are we making there?
We've been making quite a bit of progress in educating. Educating is always a big issue, but we also want to work with low-hanging fruit. Children walking and biking to school, walking to school policies for all the school districts in our region. Just a smattering of them at this time are doing walk to school days or walking school buses where you get a whole bunch of kids together with a parent and you walk in. And it does a community a great service by taking on these events because you can find out where the gaps are in the infrastructure network as you're walking along. You're right there, you're like, why hasn't the sidewalk been finished? Why is that heaved up? There's no crosswalk to get to the school safely, and on and on and on. And so that's a great way to get kids acclimated, and of course it gives them a start on some lifelong healthy habits. Now for the rest of the community itself, this is where you're going back into new subdivisions, making sure that not only do they provide sidewalks within, but also outside, so they're connecting to other places nearby, trails that connect to different neighborhoods as well. So it's a holistic system, and it really kind of comes down to how a community develops from a complete streets perspective, setting it up at the policy level, and then kind of filtering it down to the decision making.
Well, walking in the streets doesn't look like a particularly good idea at the speed some people drive through our streets.
Right.
I know I've seen you do that presentation, and I think it's such an interesting fact that if you get hit and the car is going less than 30 miles an hour, your chances of survival are 80%?
Yeah.
Is that the way it is?
About 80,
But
yeah.
over 30, you got about 80% chance of being killed.
It's actually around 40 miles an hour that you have an 80, probably to 90% chance of being killed. I mean, that's the difference, and that's why you see the slower speed limits in the neighborhoods, especially around schools. You just never know.
Which people don't abide by a lot of times.
No, they don't abide by it. But here's an interesting fact, too, about schools. You're trying to get children to school safely, but unfortunately people are driving them to school. 20% of all morning traffic are simply mom and dad dropping their child off to school. It's outstanding, that statistic. And again, low-hanging fruit. If you could just get more kids to walk that half mile or less to school, their nearby school, you could eliminate a lot of traffic and a lot of problems safety-wise for them.
I know you're trying to get some bike paths and walking paths through the center of Maryville, through the mall area, through that huge commercial area.
Yeah.
How is that really going to happen? I've seen people try to cross 10 lanes of traffic across Route 30?
Yeah, about 10.
Plus you're having to walk across all the parking lots and all the side roads. How's that going to work? Are you going to go under, over, through?
We put out a plan last year, a plan that we worked with the town of Maryville, the city of Hobart, called the I-65 US 30 corridor study. And we looked at just that issue about how people can get around their bicycle and pedestrian wise. We were able to work with a firm out of Chicago. 12 miles of new trail have been proposed in this particular area. And it goes under I-65, it goes over I-65, it goes over US 30 with new bridges. Now that's obviously a long-term issue, but getting bike and peds safely into that district is a big deal because you're right, people do walk in there. There's a lot of people who are employed within the South Lake Mall area that don't have access to cars. They come in by bus, they come in otherwise, they're walking along 30. You see that all the time. You see what we call desire paths there, where people are making these dirt ruts in the road. And the need is there. And so we have kind of cracked that egg, so to speak, with the trail, the C&O Greenway, coming in from downtown Maryville, coming under I-65 and stopping at Mississippi Boulevard now. And we're hoping to work that around where the Toys R Us and the Walmart is, eventually to the Colorado Avenue corridor and continuing on to Winfield. And then some work within that development as well to make sure we can provide for safe access.
So another interesting challenge on some of those streets, some of those roads which barely can accommodate 2 cars, and there's no shoulder at all, so and we got ditches there. But what a novel idea to maybe leave Best Buy and walk across the street to Target, rather than it would be good for all of us instead of keep moving your car every few hundred feet to the next store.
Well, true, and that really stands for anything. I mean, if you can make things attractive and safe, people are simply going to use it more often.
How connected are we to, there's some great paths over in Chicago and Illinois. We're now fairly well connected to those?
That's a great question, because we have established 2 state line connections right now, the Pensy Greenway, which crosses from Munster into Lansing, and then up in Hammond at 112th that goes right into South Chicago from the Wolf Lake vicinity. We will be opening up a new trail later this year from where the Horseshoe Casino is right to the state line where the old generating plant was by Calumet Park. We're trying to work with the city of Chicago to make sure that they can connect to that end of it, because we're kind of leaving it there at an access road, and that'll bring people safely into the park. We're
doing what Illinois did before, was bring those paths up to Indiana, and we didn't connect to them.
And now we're kind of, returning the favor. There is a gap that has been a bit of an issue in the village of Burnham that we're trying to work with NICD that runs through there, as well as some other railroad stakeholders. And if we can get through that obstacle right now and kind of wind the trail through there, and it's a complicated system, you're talking about a couple of bridges and some other pathways, we'll be able to make that connection from Chicago to the balance of our region and make that the safe connection people have been waiting for years. Very close.
So we're down here to the end. What is the one message that you want to get out to the general public about walking, biking, boating, all these things? What do you want them to know?
It provides the health benefits you're looking for. It provides the economic benefits you desire as well. The more people that can walk and bike to their destinations, they're helping their own bodies, they're helping their own pocketbooks, they're not putting money into automobiles, and they're helping their environment as well. I mean, one of the most noxious uses that we have in this country is automobile use, coming right out of the tailpipe, okay? I even talked to a representative of South Shore Clean Cities about the idea of, I know you're trying to do alternate fuels and you're trying to do electric cars, and that's all great, but bicycle and pedestrian, hey, that's the original clean fuel. And so if you take a look at the holistic benefits of bicycle and walking, and of course paddling, because paddling is a great way of getting anybody, including children, an appreciation of nature, because you're off the grid down there. You're in this environmental corridor, you're within an urban area, and you're like, this is wonderful.
Well, I appreciate that very professional answer, because I've also seen you say, get out of your car and start walking or pedaling. And sometimes you got to say that.
Sometimes you have to have an incentive, right?
So thanks for being the huge advocate you are for this, and the guy who stuck with it so long, because you've really made a difference in our region, and I think people appreciate it.
I appreciate that, Keith. Thank you.
Thanks for being here. Okay, it's confession time. Every year I think I'm going to start riding a bicycle on the wonderful array of trails in Northwest Indiana, and then it doesn't happen. Each year, my wife Becky suggests we start kayaking and trying all of these great waterways, which I brag about, and we don't. This year, it's going to be different. I have already taken my bike to get a tune-up. We bought Becky a bicycle. I think it was her birthday gift, which I promised in 2017. She loves her shiny new bike. No longer is there an excuse of not having a two-wheeler. How do we get to the cool trails in Hammond from Valpo? Oh wait, we have an old van to haul our bikes. Another excuse gone. Time to bike. How about the water? This is a little more complex. We don't have a boat or a pair of kayaks. Where do we go? Well, my friend Mitch, who was on the show, knows everything about blueways and greenways. Ken and Larry from church are diehard cyclists and have traversed most of the bike paths. My buddies Dan Plath and Maggie Byrne, avid paddlers, know where to launch a boat and where to get a canoe. I actually think Becky and I are going for the kayaks, one boat for each person. The two in the same canoe thing didn't always work well for us. I remember years ago, with our kids in the center, we dropped a canoe into a fast-flowing stream. Immediately, the current spun us around and we were headed downstream backwards. I recall there was a lot of panicked yelling. I looked at our 7-year-old daughter. Her head was down, hands clasped. I said, "What are you doing?" She replied, "Praying that we don't die." So, kayaks for us. With most excuses gone and equipment available, I just need to go. It does not have to be perfectly planned. It's an adventure. That's how we saw it as kids. We were exploring, jump on the bike and take off. Go where it looked interesting, try a new path, head to someplace we had never been. Experience the sights, smells, and sounds of another location. That's what I need to do. If these stories of hesitation, delay, excuse, procrastination, or laziness fit for you, time to get going. You can borrow a bike or rent a boat. If this doesn't work, start walking and relive the adventure of exploration. Be a kid again. Just do it. We appreciate every time you watch us on Lakeshore PBS. Your comments about any of our interviews on Lakeshore Focus are helpful. You can send your thoughts through the website or via email, both listed on your screen right now. If you can't find a previously aired show on our website for some reason, go to YouTube, type Lakeshore Focus plus a guest name or topic, and there it is. Be sure and join us again next week for another Lakeshore Focus. Until then, I'm Keith Kirkpatrick saying, make a positive difference in our world today. Running a business requires smart decisions every day. Make a good decision for your company today and reach other businesses by sponsoring Lakeshore Focus. People who watch our show are an active part of the community. They care about their neighborhoods, schools, and their homes. Are these viewers your customers? Well, they should be. To learn about all the benefits of sponsoring Lakeshore Focus, give us a call at 219-756-5656. And instead of seeing my face, you can see your business.